it's so nice to have somebody tell you, you know what, this is okay. You don't have to pay 3 times as much for organic food if you don't want to, if you can't afford it. It's still safe and wholesome to feed your kids, stuff out of the grocery store.
Hello, meat folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. This is your humble host, Phil Bass. And I have joining us today Dr. Janeal Yancey from the University of Arkansas. Dr. Yancey is a self-described meat scientist, mom, and cattle rancher. But then also, if we're lucky, she has a baby lamb in her office right now, and we'll see if it's interrupting. And if not, you know what? I bring that up because these are real people doing real jobs that are that have, and folks that have a lot of passion for our industry. And so, anyway, Dr. Yancey, thank you for joining us today.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And sorry for confessing about your office mate there for the moment.
Oh no, it's okay. He and his partners are part of the reason I'm a little sleep deprived, so I hope I don't say anything too crazy.
Not at all. No, just tell us your story. So first I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about your day job, which is your extension faculty at the University of Arkansas. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm at the University of Arkansas. My position is a little bit, I technically don't have an extension appointment. I'm mostly research, and my extension part we just call consumer outreach, but it still falls under, teaching and research. It's I kind of an interesting dynamic for my position. Yeah, so I most of what I do is research with Dr. Varick. And we do a lot of fresh meat color. We've been doing a lot of flavor type stuff. Freezing has been our hot topic lately, different types of freezing. Most of what I do is just support the graduate students and help them get their research done. We do a little bit of service stuff. And so I like research. I enjoy it, but it's probably my third place is stuff that I like to do when it comes to meats world. And then I do some teaching. I teach the Intro to Animal Science class, which I love because it's a flyover class for the whole gamut of animal science. I teach, everything from nutrition to repro to, obviously there's a lecture about meats and food safety. But then I teach a little bit of genetics. I'll teach a little bit about horses. I teach a little bit about pigs. I've got a lecture about rabbits and alpacas. I bring in a lady from our University of Arkansas Pine Bluff campus to teach about aquaculture. So I love that class. It's usually the first taste kids get of our animal science department. And so I love being there to get them started in our department. It's a big class, ideally I'd love to have fewer kids just so I could have more one-on-one time with them. But I really like teaching that class. I teach the lab that goes with it, which again, I just try to expose them to everything you can and, in a once a week lab. And then in the springtime, I teach a class called Evaluation and Handling, where we learn breeds of livestock, and then we learn about evaluating live animals and then evaluating carcasses and a little bit of handling. They do more handling stuff in the lab, honestly. And so what we found is that, our kids have really changed, and it's not really the typical an animal science kid isn't the same kid it was when you and I probably went through undergrad. And we have a lot of kids that, they're not familiar with what to look at an animal and say, oh yeah, that one's really heavily muscled, or that one's really trim, or that one's, it's really even simpler than like judging. It's really just evaluating those animals. Oh, well, that one's, walking that way because she's really structurally incorrect, or she's walking that way because she's limping, just really simple animal evaluation stuff. I even teach about horses in that class. So I get a little bit out of my area. But I enjoy it. I like teaching those young freshman classes. And then the last thing that I do is consumer outreach. And so I write a blog called Mom at the Meat Counter. But the world has moved away from the blogs, and nobody wants to read a 5-minute story, heaven forbid. So most of what I do now on my consumer outreach side is, I create content for Facebook and social media. I've tried to get into the TikTok world, or the Facebook Reels world, I guess is what it is now. And I'm a little chicken. I haven't tried that yet. I've thought about doing a podcast, but I hadn't jumped off that cliff yet either. Most of what I still do is just on Facebook. And then I love doing, I like being the go-to person here in our department for field trips and tours and things like that. When you have, a high school science class that wants to come and see the cannulated cow, I'm a lot of times the person they call, or we'll have a 6th grade GT program that comes through, and we'll see the cow, and we might make sausage in the meat lab. And I've done 1st grade classes, field trips and stuff. I like doing that kind of stuff too. So and then I advise the Block and Bottle Club, and I help with the Meats Quizable team. And I do a lot of different things. I wear a lot of hats, I guess.
Well, and it sounds very similar to what I do day to day. You find your passion, you stick to it, right? And I've been taking notes this whole time. We're going to come back to a few of those things that you mentioned, but probably the reason why I thought your extension faculty is because of all the additional outreach that you do, and it sounds like you have multiple appointments, as do I in my day job at the University of Idaho. I too am grateful that I get to teach the very first freshman introductory animal science class for all of our incoming freshmen into the animal veterinary sciences here at the University of Idaho. And I find it interesting too, and this is going to be a little sidebar, but I find it interesting. There's an awful lot of meat scientists that they put into that position, and I was thinking of at least a half dozen right off the top of my head, and I have a feeling it's because we touch every.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say. That it's funny, but it also makes a lot of sense, because you have to understand genetics, you have to understand nutrition, you have to understand the industries of all the different species. Then I guess the only thing that I don't really deal with a lot in my meat science research is reproductive physiology. But because we have a farm, I get that part of it too. So for a while, a team taught that class, and the other guy taught the repro side, and then they changed things up, and now I'm the sole teacher. So I had to, put on my big girl panties, as you say, and teach myself to do the repro stuff. But I can do it. It's been a long time since 1996 in Lubbock, Texas, but when I learned this stuff in my version of that class, but I got it down.
Yeah. Well, let's touch a little bit more on. So you kind of made a bit of a name for yourself in our industry, in our community, with your Mom at the Meat Counter blog, and I want to just address that just a little bit and see how that has evolved over time. And it sounds like we've gone a little bit away from the written text and more into the visual part. Tell us more about how you are an advocate for animal agriculture, because you truly are, and I know that you care, and I love how you're bringing in the part where it's not that you're just a member of the meat science, animal science community. You're also a parent that cares for their family and knows the value of meat in the diet.
Right. Well, being a parent is really the reason I started the blog. So I became a mom in 2008. My oldest still is 14, and you don't realize this until you become a parent and a mom, is my only perspective. Other moms are falling over themselves to figure out a way to help you, and I call it the mom club, and you don't realize it's there until you're in it. But other moms, they really want to help each other out. And they're always giving you advice. They're always trying to figure out ways to help you. I've had some really great experiences where the mom club has, saved me. And I realized, just in conversations I was having at gymnastics and conversations I was having, in the grocery store line, I I had something pretty significant to contribute to the mom club because I was a meat scientist, because, I had this knowledge of the industry and why we do what we do, and what makes things safe and what makes things nutritious. And I had this knowledge that other moms wanted. And I had so many great experiences where I'd have a face-to-face conversation with someone about, hamburgers at McDonald's, or, why meat was, red on the outside and purple on the inside, and things like that. And people would walk away with this thankful look on their face that I had helped them feel more confident about the food they buy for their kids. And so I decided, I could contribute that to the mom club online. And I was actually roommates with a fellow named Chris Rains, who he was kind of the first guy to really get online with meat knowledge. And he was I Tweet Meat. And he told me, he said, you need to embrace this mom perspective, because that's really going to give you the street cred with your, and I was a little leery about it. Oh, I don't want to be a mommy blogger. But I am, I am a mom. That's part of who I am. And 14 years on, I'm a whole lot more comfortable saying it than I was when she was a year and a half. And so I just started, writing the blog and thinking about the conversations I had, the questions I'd answered, and trying to help people, moms and other folks, feel better about the food they are feeding their families, because it's so stressful being a parent. I mean, everything is stressful. Every decision you make, affects them for the rest of their lives in your mind. And there's so much input from so many places, and it's so nice to have somebody tell you, you know what, this is okay. You don't have to pay 3 times as much for organic food if you don't want to, if you can't afford it. It's still safe and wholesome to feed your kids, stuff out of the grocery store. And just different examples like that. And so that's why I started it. That's to be my contribution to the mom club. And it was, when I first started, it was a blog, which is a website, that had articles on it that were several, paragraphs long with pictures, and, it took you 5 or 10 minutes to read it, and we don't live, social media doesn't live in that world anymore. Our attention spans are, you got to grab their attention in the time it takes them to move their thumb 2 inches, and so you really had to change and grab folks' attention early, with something visual, and then give them but still reach them on a real level, on a genuine level, that I'm a real person, and I have knowledge about this. It's gotten a lot more challenging, I think, to be genuine. I was accused of being a bot last week, so that was fun.
So, well, you must be really good at what you do if that's what it's coming down to. So, well, and it's, we need more people like you, Janeal. And I am a meat evangelist, is what I go out and tell people. Like I'm a zealot, honestly, when it comes down to talking about animal agriculture unapologetically, and we have to continue to be willing to do that. We got to get out of our comfort zone sometimes and continue to tell that story. I'm grateful that you are willing to embrace social media. I'm behind. I'm very, very behind. I have a couple accounts that are just sitting idle, very much so. But thankfully, we have folks like you willing to go out and tell that story. And instead, we're taking the opportunity on a podcast media. But tell us a little bit more about maybe some of your social media outlets that you post on, so that folks can start following you.
So I'm you talk about being behind the times. I'm really comfortable with Facebook.
Okay.
And most of what I do goes onto Facebook, and so I have a Facebook page. It's, Mom at the Meat Counter. If you just search Mom at the Meat Counter on Facebook, you'll find it.
Okay.
And so the Facebook, and that's where most of my stuff. And I try to be really good and also share it on Instagram.
Mhm.
I'm not as comfortable with Instagram because it's so visual. And I don't know. I haven't figured out Instagram yet. Um, I also have a Twitter where I'm Meat Counter Mom. Um, I uh I pretty much only tweet when I'm at conferences, if you want to know the truth. And again, that's something else that would be really easy just to, cross across platforms and put the same content on other platforms, because I'm on all those platforms personally. I don't know. I don't always, like I'll go over to Instagram and I'll scroll through and it's all the same stuff that I just saw on Facebook 5 minutes ago. So I don't know. I need to, it's just part of what I do. So it's hard to do it as well as it should be done. I have a TikTok account, but Arkansas is not allowed to do TikTok anymore, so I probably won't be doing that.
But yeah, you got to give yourself some credit though, because you're setting the stage for that next generation that does kind of embrace the social media maybe a little bit more than you and I. And you already are doing that, which is absolutely fantastic. And I want to remind everyone out there, go to on Facebook, Mom at the Meat Counter, and at Meat Counter Mom for Twitter, to make sure that you're subscribing to that and continuing to follow the message and help share the message, because that's important too in that whole social media universe, is that we have to connect, we have to continue with those connections so that the word gets out even further. But we have to continue to tell the world about the story as well. So
Right.
yeah. Well, this is fantastic. You know what, Janeal, every time we have folks on, we like to also ask, how did you get into the meat world? And so tell us your story.
Okay, so it's an interesting one, and like everybody's, it starts with meat judging. When I was a big 14-year-old in high school, in FFA, I thought I wanted to be on the livestock judging team. We showed sheep and well, we didn't even have hogs yet. We just showed sheep. And I thought I wanted to do, I'd rodeoed a little bit. And I wanted to do the horse judging as well, but we didn't have a horse judging team my freshman year. And I had judged livestock some, but I wasn't going to make the team. And so I was just, kind of a kid without a team, and that was okay. I was a freshman. Well, our ag teacher had trained a meat judging team, and she had 5 kids come out for the meat judging team. And the weekend before the contest, she lost 1 to grades, 1 to a pageant. And I went to high school with Buster Welch's granddaughter, and she was on the meat judging team, but there was a cutting that weekend. And so Amy went to the horse cutting, which would make totally sense for Buster Welch's granddaughter to go to cutting. And so that only left 2 for the meat judging team. And so the ag teacher was new, and she asked the other ag teacher, do you have anybody that's a freshman that's maybe just a warm body that we could send? And he was like, well, that Stevens kid is kind of smart, you might try her. So my mom worked at school, and the ag teacher went and talked to my mom first, and she met me, brought me into her office, and told me to sit down. And I'm thinking, what have I done? I'm in big trouble. The ag teacher brought me and she said, hey, I've told me the story. I need another person to go in the meat judging contest this weekend. This was Monday. And she was like, we're going to leave on Thursday. You'll miss school all day Friday. And we're going to go to this place called Plainview and work out at a plant at Excel in Plainview, Texas. And I'd never heard any kind of judging practice called workout, which I thought that was really cool. And then we're going to go to Lubbock, and you'll judge in Lubbock at Texas Tech. And I was like, so you're telling me I get to go on a trip and I get to miss school, and I just have to learn this stuff for 4 days? And she was like, yeah. And I said, she's like, I've already talked to your mom. And I said, yeah, sign me up. That sounds awesome. And so I learned the entire high school meat judging contest. And this was before they had the exam. in 4 days. Like, we learned all the retail cuts that day. We learned how to grade the next morning. I learned how to place classes on Wednesday, and we left for the contest on Thursday. And we get to Lubbock, and that's when the girls basketball team was in the Final Four. They ended up winning the national championship that year. So Lubbock and Tech were just nuts at the time. And so I got the experience of Lubbock in a crazy sports time, and did okay, you know, for someone who'd been judging for 4 days. Um, and so that's how I got started, you know, an ag teacher needing a warm body because, you know, somebody else was going to a beauty pageant and a cutting. And yeah, so that's how I got started, and I really loved it. You know, meats, I liked livestock judging, but meats was so much more obvious to me. You know, I mean, it's just laying there on the table. You can see how much fat it has. And you know, I still remember the way the meat lab smelled when you went in those judging contests. And you know, it's just I got a passion for judging and meats just like everybody else. I was recruited to go to Texas Tech and judge there. And you know, that was the beginning of the end for me. So that's how I got started in the meats world.
That's awesome. Well, and you come from a very come from a university that has a great tradition of meat judging as well, Texas Tech University. And so that's really cool to hear your story and how you get wrapped up and wrangled into these situations a lot. And that is indeed the path that a lot of our colleagues have taken. I didn't have the opportunity. It was something that kind of skipped past me just on my paths that I was on. But I know that it has helped a lot of folks to bring them into the industry, to introduce folks that maybe otherwise didn't even know that this industry was an industry. And so you get a chance to kind of experience things from the inside. You get into the meat plants, you get a chance to really experience food in its finest, and it goes all the way down into 4-H judging, FFA judging, like you said. Collegiate judging is a big deal, and for folks out there who are less familiar with it, look into this because again, it is a great way to get the younger generation involved in the industry.
Yep, my daughter judged meats for the first time this past spring. We had 4-H meat judging here in Arkansas, and she got to judge as a junior judger. And you know, she put on her little hard hat, and she had her frock on, and you know, had her clipboard in hand, and you know, it brought tears to my eyes because you know, it's like this is her start. You know, here she goes. She says right now that she doesn't really want to go in the meat industry, but you know, she'll have this experience, and that's what I tell kids. You know, there's a lot of folks that went this path that were in the meat industry that judge that maybe aren't still in the meats industry, but they're in some other part of the livestock industry, and they're grateful for that time. My sister is one of them. She judged meats at Texas A&M, and then she changed majors and went elementary education and was a teacher, and she was taking like an English class after she'd been on the judging team, and she called me, and she was in like a study group with these other girls, and she said, Janeal, I don't know how to explain it. She said, these girls just don't get it. She said they can't express themselves in written form. And you know, she's like, they don't know how to start a sentence. You know, she's like, I don't know why I get it. And I was like, well, I know why you get it. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, meat judging. I said, you know, you've got to fill up the paper, and you can't lie. Just like when you write a set of reasons, you have to explain yourself logically. You know, you've been trained to do that. It's ingrained in your soul, whether you're talking about a class of ribeye rolls or you're talking about, you know, I don't know, fashion or whatever it is that she talks about now. But the training that you get through that program is beyond just learning about, you know, that's a T-bone steak.
Yeah. That's well, and what a great point. You know, it is definitely beyond that. It gets folks out there. It gets younger generation on the road, like you said. and
Right. Oh, yeah.
experiencing new places, new things. Oh my gosh, what an awesome opportunity. I don't know if we've done any, I can't recall if we have any podcasts on meat judging, but I think it's about time that we do. And so this has inspired me, and so I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about it a little bit on the blog, and it's always interesting. I'll share a little. I usually do a thankfulness series during November, and usually right around the time of the international, I'll share one about, I'm thankful for meat judging, and all these things that I learned about teamwork and time management and written and oral communication and decision making and all these things that I learned that don't have anything to do with meat. And I put that on my little blog or my Facebook page, and I will get so many comments from people that I have never even heard of that, oh, I judged meats in 4-H, or I judged meats in FFA in Idaho or Florida or, New Hampshire or wherever it is, that it's a shared experience. And yeah, you learn so much more than just the judging part.
Well, I really appreciate this. I love the conversation. Appreciate your time, and thank you for what you do for animal agriculture.
Well, right back at you, Phil. I really appreciate I've told you I use several of your videos from back in your CAB days.
Yeah.
In my class. I wish I had your energy. I guess I'm a little too introverted sometimes. When I get in front of the students, I get nervous and I don't have the energy. You and Melvin Hunt, oh my gosh, y'all just have so much energy that I need to just, maybe take a shot before I teach class or
That's
something.
right. Yeah.
But I don't do that, University of Arkansas.
Ah!
I do not teach at 8:30 in the morning.
This is not Taxi Cab Confessions. Well,
yeah.
You know what? I believe coffee and Red Bull are probably still legal out there in Arkansas.
Yeah,
so maybe that'll be it.
Yeah,
it's a little nice espresso, Shadow espresso. All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see each other soon this summer.
Yeah, we'll see you this summer, Philip.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care.